Amber, I think you need to call him back.
My God. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we're just gonna do it this way.
Yeah, let's do it. I hope it doesn't come through the. Okay, that's good. Order, and I'm going to call the roll. Vice Chair Green. Can you
Yep.
hear me?
Yep, I'm
Yeah.
present.
There's a little bit of a delay, Keith. So just so
Okay.
you know.
Trustee Clayton. Here. Trustee Stone
Here.
and Trustee Larnon.
Here.
All right, there is a quorum, so I'm calling the meeting to order. The first item was public comment. Did all of the trustees get an opportunity to look at the email comments?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not going to address those specifically at this particular time, but Dr. Holmes, I assume you saw them all and read them all?
Dr. Holmes, your mic is off, so if you unmic it, or unmute it, we'll be able to hear you.
Yes, I saw them.
All right, so you may, in your report on the learning continuation plan, if you feel like you want to address any of those comments, that's fine. Otherwise, we have the comments, and I don't think that we need to spend time addressing them right now. We will get them addressed. So, Dr. Holmes, if you would like to go ahead and through the learning continuity plan that you have drafted, then the trustees will be in a position to ask questions about it. I'm assuming that everybody has seen it. It was in the content. Is there anybody who has not had a chance to look at the learning continuity plan?
Well, and it's the most recent one updated.
Yes, through-
The plan has changed. That we sent you the most recent one updated at 1:40 today. And of course, it's still subject to much change.
Oh,
Is to try to start distance learning with we can. We know not all of our students have that capability, and to try to start that next week. So just to give you a basic timeline, we have in the document on page 3, I guess it is, we have a basic timeline that this week, provided with the board's okay, we will begin collecting and cleaning devices. Most of our high school students should already have a device, but we traditionally have not sent them home with middle school and elementary, even though we have the quantity to be able to do that. We just haven't sent them home in the past. Get devices to our staff who need them. We have some 30 plus staff who need help being online. And then communicate to them what we expect of them starting next Monday, April 6th. Principals and directors will be calling and connecting with their staffs this week, their staff members, and also setting up virtual meetings to work with their staff, either in small groups or the whole group, however they want to do it, to prepare for next week. The custodians need another 3 or 4 days to finish disinfecting the buildings. They stopped that with your order to stay out of the building, so they need to be able to go back in tomorrow to finish disinfecting. And we have some Google training set up on the board website for staff who need further support in how to use Google. Then the week of the 6th through the 10th, the first 2 days, teachers would be calling students and connecting with them, providing them with information and also finding out from them who has ability to learn online, to connect that way, who does not, so that we can identify either who's going to eventually need packets or where do we need to get hotspots. We know that sometimes it's a matter of economics that people don't have connectivity, and sometimes it's a matter of location. And even giving them a hotspot is not going to work because of where they are. Teachers on the 8th start pushing out assignments to the secondary kids. Elementary kids would just be given some verbal instructions on what to do that week when their teachers call them. And starting on the 13th, we would continue distributing Chromebooks because we figure it'll take us over a week to get it to everybody that needs them. And we'll continue pushing out lessons and try to figure out how to work with those kids that do not have the ability to connect. What we would need from the board in order to move forward with this is the permission to have limited number of staff accessing the building. We would control that very tightly by scheduling time. In our principals meeting this morning, one principal reported that a lot of staff had been requesting various things out of their rooms, and he has very graciously gone and gotten those things and taken them to their house. Another principal said they've also had lots of requests, but they have not been trying to round that stuff up. So we would need to stagger times when staff could come and get whatever they think they need. Eventually, as we move toward those kids that just have no ability to do this online, we would need to have limited staff preparing packets for them. You'll see in that plan some ideas about the minutes. On one of the things when we apply for a waiver to not have to make up all the time we've missed is we have to show effort to try to capture as many minutes as possible. So we put in there a guesstimate of the assumed hours for distant learning starting on April 8th. And the state is assuming 4 hours of learning a day online. That doesn't mean it's 4 hours of class time. It could be 4 hours of reading, writing, those kinds of things. So that's basically our plan moving forward. I just have to say that all of us as educators, our hearts break for the students that we know will not be able to benefit as richly from this as in a traditional school setting. And there's nothing else we can do about it, but we just want to make the public and everyone very aware that we know we have up to a quarter of our students who probably will not benefit as much from this type of learning as traditional school. It is the circumstances of our times. It is the reality of our times. But in many of the emails or the comments to the board, there was the request to move to online learning to keep your kids safe. And that is certainly understandable. And I think all of us would say we agree with that. But there is also the fact that we have kids who will not be able to participate fully in their education for the rest of the school year. So you'll see in our learning plan, there is a question about whether or not, and this is not something that has to be decided tonight, but something for the board to start thinking about, that we get through April and we're able to open back up. Do we add more time to our calendar, or let's say we don't even get to open up in May? We go through May without being open. Do we try to do some kind of summer learning for some of our students that need to close that gap? So Angie Martinez is also on this call, and she can help us with questions now.
Okay, if I could, let's go back to the first thing that I think requires board approval. By the way, I think I'm in now.
I think
Well,
you're
we see you.
on mute.
On mute.
Yeah.
Well, in any event, while I'm working on that, The question about access to the buildings for the limited purpose of, I guess, cleaning the Chromebooks and getting them ready for distribution. What does that look like? How many people are you talking about? Is it going to be one building or various buildings? Could you fill us in a bit on that?
Teresa, you want to jump in since that's your bailiwick on getting Chromebooks cleaned and handed out? I know she has a lot of volunteer helpers, but she hasn't recruited us yet, or hasn't given us an assignment yet, maybe I should say.
First of all, we're trying to keep it manageable. So the first attempt would be to go to one school with 4 people. Each individual person would be in a classroom by themselves, and would be given the instructions for the cleaning and disinfecting, and would stay isolated in that one room until that job was done.
And how many Chromebooks are we talking about?
Amber, I think you need to hang up on Keith.
I just did, thanks.
Initially, we're trying to start small. What I'm hoping for is as teachers, did we lose?
Oh, Keith, we can hear you, Keith. You're still good.
Yep,
Okay.
we're good, Keith. You just keep, yeah. Oh,
Great.
you just muted yourself again, I think, Keith.
That's okay. I'll finish, and maybe Ben, you can unmute him for us. But so I'm hoping that when the teachers get a chance to communicate with their students, that then we'll have a much better idea of who needs a device right away. So we'll get those rolled out first, and then try to prioritize it by grade level. So secondary would be the top priority, then middle school, and then elementary students.
Okay, can we sort out, thank you, Teresa. Can we sort out with Keith whether he can hear us and hear your response? All of a sudden I'm seeing him kick out.
Can anybody hear me? I can't
Yes.
hear again.
Yep, Keith, we can hear you.
Just all of that.
Yep, we can hear you. You can't hear us though. And is your volume on your
And I'm
iPad?
not muted here. I don't know what's going on.
We
You can't hear us?
We can hear you fine. Is your volume on your iPad on?
That must be what's happening, is the volume on the device.
Mike's off.
I'm gonna call him again.
Okay, great.
Call
We'll
you
just
again.
leave his mic off and he can talk through the phone.
Okay. Okay, there we
Yeah, I
are.
guess we'll go back this way.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes.
Do you want?
I didn't hear a thing about how many Chromebooks there were, how long you think it's going to take, or anything of that sort.
Yes, it's going to take several weeks, I would anticipate. We're looking at sending 4 people into one building. Each person would go into a separate room and be by themselves in that one room to disinfect and get those Chromebooks ready. I think it's probably ambitious to say we could get 200 in one day ready to go, but we'll try to see once we start the process how fast it goes.
And how soon are you thinking about starting the process?
Well, I have to be honest, I'm unsure as to the staffing and the supplies, having all the things in place that we need to do this properly, and just knowing what is the proper technique to use so that we know that the Chromebooks have been disinfected. But we were anticipating starting this week, possibly Thursday and Friday, and then it'll be going on from there.
So are you contemplating starting, at least with the secondary schools, first, as I'm reading this?
Yes, that was,
Secondary schools would start before elementary. Is that correct?
correct.
All right. I'm just going to take it in order. Trustee Green, questions?
As far as like the Chromebooks, for example, I have a high school student who has a Chromebook. Would there be priority for people that don't have them? Are you anticipating like sharing between siblings in a household or any of that?
Well, of course, we've been thinking about all these eventualities. My hope was that as teachers reach out to their students, we'll get a better idea of what the needs are. Starting with secondary, we want to be sure that all the students at the secondary level took their Chromebook home. Maybe there are a handful that still need it. Then we'd be looking at trying to get 6th, 7th, and 8th. And 8th graders at Wood River Middle School have Chromebooks assigned to them, but it's the same question. Did they take them home or are they at school?
So, as far as like elementary goes, I'm not sure if you're looking at more like a 3 through 5 level for Chromebooks. I know that like K through 2 don't need them as much for their material, but I'm not sure how that is being looked at with them being anticipated for those different age groups.
Yeah, it's certainly something we've talked about, Kelly, and tried to wrap our heads around all of this. I'm sorry, Trustee Green.
That's okay.
The other discussion has been around families, that if we're asking a family to come to a location to pick up the Chromebooks, as a parent, I would want to pick up all the devices for my kids at that time. I don't want to come back multiple times. So that's another thing we've talked about. And then finally, we also feel like there will be some families that might want to request a delivery. That would be the last thing we would be able to do, but we could honor some of those requests too.
If I may, Trustee Green, when we get to the elementary level, there will be a Cleverly login that makes it very easy for kids to get into all of the different programs that they might want to get into instead of having to log into multiple programs. Our kindergartners and first graders are very familiar with iStation and some of those things that are available to them. So we do plan on trying to get Chromebooks to them because there are opportunities for them to learn there for those students that have that connectivity.
Okay. And just, from my situation, I know not everybody's situation is the same as mine, but I have 2 elementary students, 1K and 1-2. For me as a parent, I could view it as my kids could probably share a Chromebook. I wouldn't need an individual Chromebook for both my kindergartner and my second grader. So, I think those are things that we can also work with parents and families is, you may not have enough devices to hand to every student per se, but we can have, at least something in the household that they can have access to. But as far as Chromebooks, that's my only question, as far as, devices and whatnot.
Trustee Clayton, can you hear us?
Sure can.
And questions or comments from you?
Yeah, I got a bunch. So what I think is we need to, as a group, act as expeditiously as possible to make sure this online learning program gets rolled out. I don't think we should worry too much about the details. I think we have to leave the details up to the staff to manage. I think that we really need, it looks adequate. It looks like it's got the right idea. I think what's most important is that we can begin or resume the educational process as quickly as possible, regardless of what the substance is. I think that is important on the level of both the meeting the state requirements on minutes as much as possible, because the longer we delay, the further in the hole we're going to get in minutes. So we need to do as much minute work as we can, as soon as we can. So, because we're going to be asking for a waiver. Everyone's going to be asking for a waiver. We need to get in front of that whole process as well. Those are the directives I think we should really be worried about right now. How the equipment's sold out, all of that, we really need to rely on our staff to do a good job with that and trust them to do a good job. I do think that we do need to consider that the tools that the teachers have are in their classrooms. The teachers are essential employees. So if they are agreeable and they are clean and health, I would like to have the discussion or the consideration of the availability of their classrooms for them, because they have the tools within their classrooms to do the work that they need to do. And if they're isolated as individuals, they're meeting the requirements of social, whatever it's called. And so that potential thing, I want to throw that for discussion, because I think that's a pretty critical part of the thing, because it's the teacher who are going to get the job done. So those are my main points, is like potential access to classroom, get the waiver in the hopper now, so we're first in line to get it. Even though it may not be in process, we should have that work done and the application done. We've already calculated the deficit in minutes that we're going to have and what we're going to need to ask for. So those are the big picture things that I think that are important right now.
Trustee Stone.
Yeah, so I agree that starting with any kind of content is better than nothing. And, you know, we understand that this is not going to be at the same level of teachers having kids in their classroom, but even just teacher contact with students, I think is a real, it would be a real benefit to students and a benefit to families. And I'm really glad that that's something that can start right off before we sort out all the communication and online learning. I am really concerned about safety, and I'm concerned about having teachers back in the schools. A lot of the coronavirus is being transmitted by people who are asymptomatic. And so even if people don't have a fever, et cetera, that can be a problem. And so at this point, I would feel a lot more comfortable if people, you know, were able to go in their room and grab a couple things and head back out the door. The idea of multiple people in a building, each in their own rooms, I'm not very comfortable with right now. But hopefully we can get to a point where we can do that. Let's see if I had a couple other comments to make here. You know, obviously when we distribute Chromebooks, I haven't seen the grab and go lunches, but I'm assuming that we've had kind of a way of doing that makes sure people are spread out and aren't hanging around and have as little contact as possible. I'm hoping that that's the same kind of technique that would be deployed to distribute the Chromebooks. I did look online at what some other districts are doing, because obviously everybody's trying to do the same thing. And there are teachers who are recording content, maybe just with their phones, recording a lesson and then putting it on the local TV station, because almost everybody has a TV and has access to local TV stations, and then they tell their kids what time to watch. So that is another way that we could maybe reach some of these kids. I know you guys have thought of a million different things and have probably talked about that already, but I thought that sounded interesting. And I liked, again, just the idea that we're reaching out and teachers are reaching out and talking with their students and communicating with them, if nothing else. That's all I have.
All right, Trustee Larna.
Yeah, so I have a few things. One, just listening and reading over everything today, I'm wondering why we're waiting till April 8th to start these kids back in class. Like, why we're not trying to get them their Chromebooks all this week, especially since we had the week prior to spring break, trying to figure out some of this and where we can actually start the education process on the 6th, Monday the 6th, instead of in the middle of the week. And same thing in regards to the Chromebooks and all of that. I wonder if maybe we can even implement it with the lunches, maybe that's the same spot and kind of how we're doing that. So we're not trying to do all that. We already have volunteers. We already have people there. We already have, people coming to Cary and wherever the sites are. So maybe that can be something that we can, I don't know, reach all of these kids. And same thing I've heard, I've reached out to a lot of different schools that are already doing online. And it seems I have been one that's been really concerned. I'm really worried about the kids' well-being that are not maybe in safe homes, that maybe don't have mentally healthy environments, all of that. And so I've really wanted to try to get these kids back in school as soon as possible. But I think that that's not at all an option. And I also think that instead of elongating all of this, if we make the decision to say that we're not going back to school, and that way we have a plan in place instead of trying to keep continuing to figure that out.
May I respond to Trustee Larna?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think one of the reasons why we're a little slow on this is we were ordered out of the buildings. And so some of the work has gotten pushed back. It does require feet on the ground. I understand the safety concern. I understand we need to stay away from each other as much as we're social human beings, but it was our plan to have the buildings all disinfected by this time, and so that technology could get in and start preparing the Chromebooks, and we're pushed back a little bit on that. But if we can go in, and you'll trust us to be very careful, like Teresa was talking about, I think we just have to jump in and do some things. We can continue to debate, should we do it this way or that way? And I think we just have to take a jump and get going, because we'll debate this until the end of the school year and never get it going.
Yeah, I agree.
Can we have a really clear list?
I have one more question. Sorry.
Go ahead, Amber, I'm sorry.
No, that's it. I was going to say, do we have a plan in place for those kids that oftentimes, and I know it's not all of our responsibility, but I do think it's something that we really need to consider, those kids that they're not in a safe environment. And I know that they're not during the summer either, but I'm really concerned about them having to learn in this environment that's even safe, so.
Yeah, over the last 2 weeks now, that was in our original plan and didn't get it copied over today as we were frantically trying to adapt to the new situation. But over the last 2 weeks, our social workers have been calling and connecting with some those kids that they know are in difficult situations, and families that are in difficult situations. And we've asked our social workers, Aaron Bronson is heading that up, to be logging their time, because they are working additional time outside of their contract right now, but they have been connecting with them. So,
is it outside of their time if we
don't extend school?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you for a minute, so I wasn't sure if you were talking or not.
It's a little dicey on this, but no, that's why we're just having them log it at this time, because we won't know really what it is until we get to the end of this, and then we can. Okay. But at least we have a record. If we owe people money, we owe people money.
Got it. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. And Laura, go ahead. I'm done.
I just had one follow-up question to that. Can we have clear, along with all the other things that you're drafting, can we have clear guidelines for anybody entering school, what they can do, can't do, don't use the bathroom, or you have to wear a mask, or whatever the rules are, so that everyone understands how to be safe in there, because it protects them and it protects everyone else as well?
Sure. If you see in the plan that was thrown together real quick this morning as we were changing everything for the changing circumstances, you'll see on the top of page 5, now we can add the mask and gloves piece, but it's recommended that specific times be set, and we wanted each building to do this rather than us trying to dictate from the district office. There's a word missing. At which time staff may enter the building for the sole purpose of accessing teaching materials. no gym usage, et cetera, because right now we have staff locked out of the buildings. We're able to do that through our card control system, but we would have to set a time that they could come in, but not to work out in the weight room or use the gym or whatever else. And principals and buildings and grounds would set this hours together because we want the custodian to be there during that time, to be constantly disinfecting door handles and those kinds of things that would be impacted. All access would be through the front doors for accountable purposes, so we know who's there, how many, who's really supposed to be there, who's not. And we could certainly add the gloves and mask type of thing. And then we've also added the thing that if you reside with a person who's ill or ill themselves, you should not come, and they should restrict their movement to their own classroom spaces and copy machines as needed.
Are the copy machines shared or are those in each classroom?
Yeah, unfortunately, they're shared, but they are a high contact area, which is why we want the custodians there constantly cleaning them in between users.
Okay.
Yeah, boy, teachers would love it if we get them all their own copy machine.
Yeah, that
Is
was,
the principal going to be present when this takes place?
Yes. Principals and a custodian would be present, and they would set that up. So, for example, if I was a high school principal and I had a large number of staff, I might set up certain times for different parts of the alphabet or different departments to come in. If I was a small school principal like at Bellevue, I might just set up some times because it's a small enough staff, I wouldn't worry about having them bumping into each other all the time.
and the safety measures will be district-wide, not determined by each school, correct?
That's correct. The
Okay.
time will be determined by each school, but the safety measures are district-wide.
Okay.
So one more question on that. So what about, can't tell if she's talking.
No, you're okay.
Am I? Okay, there's a delay, so I apologize. Is she talking?
I'm not talking.
You're not. Okay, it looks like you are. So I apologize. You're the only
Sorry,
one I can see. It looks like you're
I'm
talking.
taking notes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so what about the teachers, social workers, etc., that did leave during spring break? Are we doing something different with that, or are they just going to come back and immediately go to quarantine before they do go into buildings, etc.?
The ones who left during spring break, was that the question?
Why would we assume that somebody who was out of state would have a higher chance of having been in contact than somebody who's right here in the county?
That's a great point, especially
This is
for
our county. Yeah, especially our county.
yeah, great point.
I have a question as far as what do we do for staff that suspect that they are ill and are unable to teach their classes?
I think it would be just like normal. They're not supposed to come in, and their teammates help cover for them. So if I call my principal and say I'm ill, I can't come in, then Principal Brad will figure out what other first grade teachers will help cover my load until I'm able to come back and pick up.
And we want to be in an atmosphere where we're highly encouraging people to not be there if they don't think their health warrants it,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
And if we have, I presume that principals will be monitoring who's going in and out of their school, but if a principal is sick, they will designate someone else to do that in their
Correct.
place. Okay.
Correct. Right. We have one principal in quarantine right now, and the assistant is heading things up right now.
I guess I still have one more question in regards to just finishing the school year in regards to thinking that we're going back.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we need to consider now and having a plan in place, I guess?
We actually, Amber, we have resolution that would say that we'll make that decision no later than the 20th of April. So we could make that decision tonight if you wanted to, or we could wait and see what happens. My own view is that there are so many infected people in the county, including some that are both classified as certificated employees, that it's pretty unrealistic to think about opening up the schools.
And that's my point. Yeah, that's my point.
I think Rob had something he wanted to say to this.
Yeah, I think we need to be, may I speak?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I appreciate the crystal ball approach that we're taking here, but I really think that we should be incremental in our movement forward, because I think we have a significant obligation to provide education to everybody we possibly can. There's going to be people who aren't going to be able to get on the bus. It's unfortunate, but we have to move this forward for the majority. And what I feel is that this educational process needs to be undertaken. By saying school is going to come back in or not come back in, I think we just need to be incremental in our approach, because we still have almost 3 months of school year left, 2.5. Let's see where this unwinds. Let's see how it unravels. Because if we just go to this online platform, run that through the end of the year, the hole that we may create educationally within the population that we're responsible for could be irreparable. And I don't want to be responsible for that. I want to be sure that we are very thoughtful in our approach, and that we take the time to make sure that it's a definite non-starter. At this juncture, I don't believe it's a non-starter. I believe we can still hold some hope that we could reestablish and get back to a contact situation. Is it reality? I don't have that crystal ball, but I don't believe anyone has that crystal ball. So I'm really adamant about just taking this, as Trust Chairman Rourke said, we got another decision date maybe on the 20th. Let's take the time and let's get things rolling. I think we have to take care of the immediate. The immediate is to get the online thing going so that we have kids engaged. Children need to be occupied. There are 3,000 kids right now with really nothing to do in a time that they're not used to having nothing to do. And it's our obligation to make sure that they get something to do, have some contact. I think we got the people in place to do it. I think our staff is chomping at the bit to get back into work. So let's provide them with at least whatever access we can. This online plan, it works for me. And that's really what we're supposed to be discussing right now is, are we going to do it or not? And I'm all for doing it.
I think that
Well, I don't think we have any choice but to do it. At what point, though, do you think, what would it take to convince you that things are safe enough that we could open up the buildings and bring the kids back in?
Great question. I mean, I don't have that answer. I don't think anyone has that answer. I mean, time will heal everything. This thing is going to go away. It is going to end, right? We know that. But how is it going to end? I don't think anybody knows. I think probably it's conceivable everyone in the valley is infected, right? This thing could be over in 2 weeks if everybody's got it. Like, it's over, right? That's the other side of it. Is it going to drag on for the next 4 months? Could do that too. I don't want to get mired down and looking too far ahead right now. I want to action what is necessary in the immediate to get the process back in play. That's my concern.
I just like to hop in here real quick. I think I'm not super optimistic that we are getting back into school by the end of the year. But I think we have to be thinking in those terms as we make plans here so that we can be ready for that eventuality. But without question, this changes. I mean, the report that you submitted to us today had a timestamp on it. Things are changing rapidly, changing throughout the day, changing daily. And so I do think there's something to Rob's point that we really don't know what the situation is going to be going forward. I think it's okay to hope that we'll come back and realize that we very well may not, and that we should revisit this. That's where I'm coming from at this point.
we do, have our regular scheduled board meeting for the 14th, the week before the 20th, which, knows what'll happen by then. That's 2 weeks away. But a lot can happen. I think it's a day-by-day thing. I think by the 14th, we may have more information to look at what happens on the 20th of April. And I think that it'll just kind of play as we go.
Well, look, we're a little bit ahead of ourselves here because we actually have that resolution to consider in our next item. But I think what we probably ought to do to keep moving this along is to decide whether or not we approve of the continuity plan as it is proposed, including the access to buildings portion of that plan.
I move we.
Well, are we just on information right now, or are we in the action agenda?
Well, I think we're just in the information right now.
Mhm.
But we're going to have to approve this plan.
You're going to have to, your order of people being out of buildings through this meeting needs to either be extended or said that it is done. That's what we need to know, because if that order extends, then we can't get people into buildings and we can't move forward on this. If that order is over, we will cautiously get the feet on the ground we need to be able to get this plan going.
So on our agenda, we have our information item of this continuation plan. Then we move into our action agenda, which has approval of the school closure and then consideration of restart. Is that order of individuals within buildings included in the consideration of restart of academic programming? Is that included in there, or are we taking that on as a separate item?
You could,
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, the way Dr. Holmes described it is that there was an order to keep staff out of the buildings based on the social distancing and the isolation order given to the county. Is that a separate item that we need to vote on, or is it included within this consideration of restarting our academic programming? I'm guessing, my understanding was the information that we gained from the learning continuation plan was what we would be voting on for this consideration of restart. Are they two separate?
Well, that could be subsumed in that resolution 2020-1.
Okay.
okay.
If you want to move to that, has everybody asked the questions that you wanted to ask as regards to the continuity plan?
I just still would like to ask if it's something that we can start on the 6th versus the 8th, and we get all of our ducks in a row this week, because it's the beginning of the week, and I think that the sooner the better.
Okay. If I could, because you asked me to speak to public comment, and the plan basically goes along with the majority of the public comment, which is go to online learning, keep our kids safe. I do want to speak real quick to two other things that we'll be pushing information out on. There's some questions about high schoolers getting AP credit, graduating, those kinds of things. Provisions have been made at a national level for kids to be able to do AP tests from home. Don't ask me how, but that's Marcia Grabo will be helping us with that. And if students were on track to graduate when we close schools on March 16th, any else there should still be on track to graduate this year, regardless of what happens with school. The state board has said if they were there on the 16th, they're there.
Any other questions of Dr. Holmes?
So from Amber's question, are we able to start on the 6th? Is that a possibility, or is that expecting?
Well, we'll see what you guys do on the reconsideration. If you take action on the reconsideration and we can start putting people in buildings in small numbers tomorrow, we'll get going on it.
And when was the plan to have teachers start reaching out to students? Is that not until the 6th, or does that start this week?
The 6th and 7th.
So there will be contact with students starting on the 6th, which is the most important contact to really understand where we stand.
Right, right. This week, principals would be contacting teachers and paras and the people in their building and making their plan in their building. The plan that we have provided provides basic guidelines and how much assignment, how many assignments per day, how much work per day. So we're not overloading and stressing kids out. But then, as always, then buildings take that and they figure out how they want. I know Principal Short this morning was talking about some STEAM activities that would be specific to their school. So each of the schools will start working on figuring that out the rest of this week with their principals.
So this week is basically school
Principals working with staff.
principal staff time to prepare,
Right,
given the outline that you've provided for a timeline and everything else. And then starting next week, they would reach out immediately to kids, and then
right.
and then we would be rolling out the Chromebooks
Less-
online access from there.
Yep. With the understanding that it might be the second week before we get the last Chromebook out, because as Teresa said earlier, we could be looking at 1,500 Chromebooks if every single one needs one.
Right. And you want to clean them first. So
Yes. Yep. Okay.
Any further questions as regards the continuity plan?
I have
All right, let's move then to the action agenda. And you should have received two draft resolutions, Resolution 2020-1 and 2020-2. Let's take up 2020-1. This is the resolution that ratifies the closure of our buildings from the 16th forward to the 20th of April. So we ratify the current closure, and then we authorize further closure. Does anybody have any question about the content of that resolution?
no.
No.
Then I'll entertain a motion to adopt Lane County School District number 61, Resolution 2020-1.
I move we accept Blaine County School District number 61, resolution 20.
Ellie, you're hard to hear right now. I'm not sure what happened.
Oh.
There we
my
go.
hair. I move
I'll
we
second.
accept resolution.
Okay, I second that.
Further discussion? There being none, I'll call the question. I'm going to make a roll call vote on both of these. So, Trustee Green,
Aye.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Stone,
Aye.
and Trustee Larna.
Aye.
Motion passes. The chair votes with the ayes. So we have unanimously adopted Blaine County School District number 61, Resolution 2020-1. Then let's move on to 2020-2. Are there questions about that?
Can you remind us what it's about? Give us a quick summary.
Yes. Vice Chair Green and I talked about this earlier, and here's the situation that it's trying to address. As you know, we have a lot of policies, and rather than going back and combing through those policies and trying to find every possible contradiction between what the policies say and what we need to do in this crisis, this motion would simply declare that any policy that conflicts with the measures we are taking in accordance with the State Board of Education, the Office of the Superintendent, the Governor, and any policies that the board or any actions that the board may take, if they are in conflict, they are for the time suspended. So we don't have to worry about spending hours trying to comb through all of these policies. The second part of that is it's possible that there may be some conflicts with the contracts that the board currently has. And we intend to stand by those contracts. But we also have to respond to the coronavirus pandemic. And so consequently, again, if there's a contract provision to which the board is party and it conflicts with any of our measures, Board of Trustees will make reasonable efforts to resolve the conflict by mutual agreement, but will in all cases comply with the applicable statutes, administrative rules, regulations, directives, and so forth. So it's just a protection for us, gives us a little more flexibility in the event that at some point in this whole process, we have a contractual conflict.
Thank you.
Just to add more information, it came out of an email that we received from Karen Echeverria from ISBA. Due to the fact that the federal government has passed the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and we may have some policies that actually conflict with that. And like he said, rather than combing through every policy, this just covers all of our bases.
Any other questions about the resolution?
No.
No.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we accept Blaine County School District number 61 resolution 2020-2.
A second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You want the roll call vote, Keith?
Opposed? And actually, I want to do a roll call vote. I didn't do that. Vice Chair Green,
Aye.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Stone,
Aye.
and Trustee Larna.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Chair votes with the ayes, and the resolution is adopted by unanimous consent. Okay. And we have here the consideration of restart of academic programming. And I'm going to take that to mean the continuity plan. Is that correct, Dr. Holmes?
Yes, that's correct.
Further discussion then regarding the restart of academic programming being the continuity plan presented this evening.
I do have two questions, if I could hop in. Is that okay?
Please.
Yes.
Yes.
Some questions that came up in the public comment. Someone asked how to find out about preschool registration.
Yes, we are, of course, not having it on Thursday and Friday. Heather will be sending out some information on that, and we're trying to decide if we should maybe just even wait till August because of the uncertainty going forward.
Okay.
We will have preschool and kindergarten next year. We just don't know when we're going to get you registered yet.
Okay, great. And then will there be somebody we're thinking about what graduation looks like if we can't finish? We don't want to wait until April 20th to start thinking about that.
We have a very creative team that's working on that and different options, including something that I'm dying to tell you, but I can see we got a lot of people listening and it would spoil the surprise. So yes, some ways to really honor and recognize those kiddos, even if we have to have graduation virtually.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions of Dr. Holmes?
Uh-huh.
All right, then I will entertain a motion that we approve the restart of academic programming, which is presented by the continuity plan discussed earlier this evening.
So moved.
I got a
Oh, Rob had questions. Sorry.
Please go ahead.
So if I'm reading this plan right, we're going to resume action on the 6th of April, correct?
Actually, we're going to assume action tomorrow so we can assume action with the kids on the 6th of April.
So the the device distribution is on the 6th of April. That's when this
That's-
plan.
That's correct, but we're going to have staff start working again tomorrow in a limited fashion so that the custodians can finish cleaning, disinfecting the buildings, and we can start preparing Chromebooks for handing out. Been just sitting on hold on that.
And then for clarity's sake on that, as far as staff, we had that discussion briefly, I think, in the previous conversation when we were going over this.
Uh-huh.
When I won't say, I don't know what the best way. We need to have people as distributors of this. Are we limiting, what is the official limitation of that? Are you going to direct that? How's that going to work? So that that's clear as we vote on this.
On distributing the Chromebooks or distributing the plan?
In Chromebooks, are we going to have volunteers? Are we going to just rely on the technology department? Are we going to try to do a bigger job of that?
Well, the technology department will lead it, but the entire district leadership team offered their services to Teresa today to help with that. And I know she's also reached out to some tech people in the buildings to help with it too. So Teresa will direct it, but she's got a big army ready to go if she needs it.
Well-distanced.
The well-distanced army, yeah.
Yes. Well-distanced army. Gotcha.
Because I don't want any surprises on that. Somebody says, "Oh my God, what are we doing?" Like, just let's be clear now so we know.
And I would just want to confirm too that if people aren't comfortable doing that, that it is a volunteer job. And if they have someone compromised at home or feel like they're at higher risk, that they don't feel pressure to participate in that, that it is voluntary.
Now, there are other ways that they can help.
Right. Great.
Any further questions? I'll entertain the motion then that we adopt the school closure
Keith,
plan, which is represented by, was someone else speaking there? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Rob has one more question here.
So if I understood this correctly, this process will begin tomorrow, right?
Correct.
Getting started. So with that, will teachers have accessibility if they're deemed not worthy, but if they're appropriate to go into their rooms or to get materials or to get started?
Not tomorrow. We got to let the custodians get in there and finish the disinfecting, but they will be connecting with their principals this week, and their principals will be telling them when they can come in and get their stuff.
Perfect. So that'll be monitored and the principals will be responsible for that action.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Let's go back. I'll entertain a motion that we approve the restart of academic programming as represented by the continuity plan.
So moved.
Both Laura and I.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, that should be Trustee Stone made the motion and Trustee Larna second.
Confirmed. Trustee Stone has made the motion and Trustee Larna will have seconded.
Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor, I'm going to go, no, I don't need to. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it. The approval has been granted. We will restart the academic program according to the plan that has been laid out by Dr. Holmes. It is labeled continuity plan. I think that takes care of all of the items on the action agenda. We do have an executive session that has been calendared and posted. Do we have someone, one of our tech people, who can take this off public access at this point and restrict the meeting strictly to the clerk, the superintendent, and the trustees?
And thank you to everybody who joined. We appreciate that you were here.
Yep.
Yes,
I wanted to
thank
say thank you
you.
to everybody for the plan and those that attended and listened.
Yeah.
140
And the
of you.
patients.
And their patience as we got going. Yes.
Yes.
Take care.
Technical
Everybody
difficulties.
stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you for the adult interaction.
So, yes, I could put this as